Hello, my name is Biker Dash and welcome to Brony Defense Chat. With us is Fanta, V-Pony, and totallynotabrony. Today's topics will be the ISIL, Israel and Gaza, the Ukraine, and the UK carrier. And being bronies, we will most likely tie this into the fandom.
Everything always leads to pony eventually.
Yes. We go everywhere.
So, let us
Speaking of
start
being
out.
everywhere recently, ISIL has been making recent gains in Iraq and Syria. The Iraqi security forces, as well as Kurds defense forces, and recently the United States have been engaging them.
Well, considering how ineffective the Iraqi National Army, or whatever the heck you want to call them, will be left in charge, that's not really that surprising.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. What's even worse is that ISIL has been capturing equipment that the Iraqis have been using, stuff left behind by the United States.
Great.
Got Humvees and APCs.
All right, we need to put like some RFID chips or something on those guns that we give them, and a link to RFID chips that the Iraqi guys have on their uniforms, and if they're not within a certain distance of the two chips, the weapons don't work. I say we do that. That way, the people that we want to have the weapons, they can have them and use them, and no one else can.
The only problem, of course, being cost effectiveness, because that would be extremely expensive.
Those terrorists are just so ingenious.
Yeah, less expensive than them, I don't know, grabbing the weapon and shooting our guys. Just saying.
Yeah, ISIL are a Sunni Islamic group. Basically, from what we've seen, they hate Shias and everyone who's not a Muslim. They were so crazy that Al-Qaeda didn't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah, they're so crazy
Yes.
Hamas doesn't want anything to do with them. That's saying a lot.
Indeed.
They're like, no, we're not affiliated with them. We just want to blow up Gaza. Okay.
Yeah, Gaza. That's a good transition to our next talking point. Israel and Gaza are currently under a ceasefire. As a result of increased Hamas rocket attacks on Israel, Israel invaded Gaza on July 8th. This is not the first ceasefire they've been under, but if I remember correctly, it's the longest they've been under so far.
What, a week?
Talking to experience, Biker, have you been involved with counterinsurgency operations or anything of the kind before?
No, not actually out on operations, and if I had, there's a good possibility I wouldn't be able to talk too much about it. But
fair enough.
I've been trained enough about it there to be able to give my thoughts on this. What they would need to do is they need to send need to find out where rocket positions are, send teams in, and they're going to want to use snipers to be able to take out the ones there that are guarding the human shields they've been using repeatedly. After you do that, the insurgents are not going to be able to effectively cover the rockets and also be able to defend themselves fighting back against us. What are they going to do?
So the higher precision, lower collateral damage route. Yeah, we've been practicing a lot of that. That's where the drones and Hellfires come in.
Mm-hmm. I actually have something I can add to that with a friend of mine who lives in Bat Yam, Israel. Most of the rockets fired from Gaza actually travel right over his house. They keep him up at night. I'll notice him come on at random times of the night and says, "Yep, rockets again." He was keeping count of them a while ago. In any case, part of the issue is two things. A, funding used for development in Gaza is being siphoned off and used to create a large number of tunnels through which they can move their rocket assets, and they do this quite frequently. It's very hard to keep track of where they actually are. The second part of this is actually that despite encouragement that people volunteer themselves to shield places where they could be gathering, it's actually hasn't gone well for them. In fact, they're as far as I've been told, quite unpopular with most of the Muslim population of the district. Nobody really likes them. They're just they're almost by themselves, really. The only problem is they have just enough people to be a rather dangerous problem.
Yeah, counterinsurgency operations. I remember reading. I'm trying to remember who wrote the book. I want to say it was Petraeus, maybe, about counterinsurgency operations, and basically the only way you can do it is win enough hearts and minds that the common public rejects the extremists.
Well, that's how we.
Which is exactly why we need to be putting our money into portal technology to get the ponies here and have them take care of the hearts and minds.
Exactly. We need to bring Cadence over here and be like, love, kill it, folks. What the shit?
It's kind of funny because among other things, this one soldier who actually came from I cannot remember the proper term for it. Brian would probably kill me for trying to. I don't know how to say it. In any case, it's I think lone soldier or something is generally what it equates to. Basically, he came over from Texas to serve with the IDF by himself, actually not with his family. So someone that wasn't born in Israel and didn't even bring his family to Israel but came there to defend it. These people are looked at with some degree of respect. Mm-hmm. He was killed. And the interesting thing was the Facebook posts, for instance, about it were you found both Jews and Muslims both saying that not only did they have condolences for the family, but both sides just want the fighting to stop so they can go on with their lives. The only problem is it seems like most of the civilians are caught between the semi-hard line of some of the people in the Israeli government and Hamas, who isn't going to bow to anyone.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. In the last 5 weeks, if I remember correctly, it's been more than 1,000 Palestinians and 50 or 60 Israelis have been killed in the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were. Let's put it this way: Israel was. They were fed up with Gaza's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to remember that it wasn't Gaza itself; it was Hamas.
Right.
And,
yes.
There are two sides to this issue, most definitely. But I think the situations that are a little bit more clear cut, for example, ISIL. Nobody likes those guys. Nobody likes those guys. Not a single one.
Yeah, well, like I said, they basically pulled all the every single extremist and crazy in that region all in one little group. So it's kind of like,
It's part of that is actually why I like our current strategy against them. The issue, of course, with the way that we prosecuted, for instance, Afghanistan and Iraq, is the issue is a lot of these extremist groups can't really get recruits unless they have someone to act as the enemy, in which case us. As long as they can say that they are the home team defending against the invaders, they can get recruits. The thing is, what we're doing with the Islamic State is we're using airstrikes against them, which pave the way for the locals of the region to come in and take their stuff back. And as long as it's them that's doing it, not some invading force from outside, it leaves them with a much harder... It makes it a lot harder for them to say, hey, we're here to defend you from these people, when the people that you're trying to defend them from are the people that you took the stuff from and killed in the first place, that are just trying to get their homes back.
Which is what I advocated back in 03 or 02 somewhere. I'm like, hey, remember Kosovo? Remember how long that lasted? It didn't. And guess what? We didn't have anybody land on the ground. We just bombed the hell out of everybody there. And
Kosovo was airstrikes only.
It worked pretty good.
Talking to what Fanta said about the locals taking back their stuff, I just recently read an article that the Kurd Defense Forces were in the process of getting Mosul Dam back. So that's an example of recent gains.
Which is definitely important, because I wouldn't put it past the crazies to try and blow it up just to stop them from getting a hold of it.
Yeah. If it took out that dam, it'd be like a 65-foot wall of water washing away Mosul.
Yeah, isn't that what those guys said? Something on their website, like it'll be the second flood, and you need a boat. And
apparently, that was actually a nuance of translation. What they were actually talking about was being more symbolic to the idea that not literally flooding everything out, but that they are the flood, and then either you convert or you will be killed.
So
is the general idea.
So we need the Master Chief to combat the flood.
Their interest, yes, their interest is in scaring people into joining them. Not, well, I guess they have certainly on quite a few occasions slaughtered people wholesale, but that isn't as effective as getting recruits, because of course, as more of them die, if they run out of recruits, they cease to exist, which of course we want, but they don't.
Right.
Speaking of airstrikes in Iraq, Biker, didn't you have that video queued up?
I shall bring it up. 1 second here.
Yeah, starting on August 8th, the U.S. Navy began doing airstrikes into Iraq. They've released some unclassified video related to that. Weapon systems dropping bombs on this, that, and the other.
Right. And, well, I said the airstrikes are working out pretty good because nobody wants to join a group that can't shoot down the guys that are just having their way with them.
Well, that's
you have to hold on. My system's running slow here. I'm running at 99%.
It's like, come join us. No thanks. I don't feel like getting blown up today. I'll blow myself up on my own. I don't feel like I need to blow up before, I feel like I need to.
Whoops.
Yeah, here's the video.
Right, there we go.
Super Hornet.
There it goes. Obviously, it's going to look far clearer on your end because Skype transfers at a very low frame rate.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, you're the one running.
It went from food to everything. And then nothing.
It shows what we have power to do, and it also shows proof and evidence we're actually doing it. Right. Being first with the truth is becoming more and more popular in this day and age of social media.
Right.
Terrorists understand this as well. That's why they've been really social media and whatever else. And the ISIL guys have done stuff like public beheadings and things like that. And you want to get your message out there, that's sure a way to do it.
Yeah.
Really gruesome about is they've been rounding up a lot of children to publicly behead the children.
Right.
There is one social more that is pretty much universal
that you don't
on this world. You do not harm children, and they are deliberately targeting in particular Christian children because they know Christianity is very prevalent throughout the world, and and showing that this is what we will do to y'all if you do not convert.
Which is which serves two purposes: A, convert or die; B, trying to get some kind of large Christian entity in to attempt to just start throwing stuff willy-nilly, taking out some civilians in the crossfire. And like I said earlier, that can then say, "Hey, look, we're here to defend you from these guys."
Yeah, that's getting their message out in the social media. Another group that has not been quite so effective with their social media would be the Ukrainian separatists. They're posting stuff like, we're getting tanks from Russia, and we got this nice SA-11 anti-aircraft missile from Russia. Russia's probably just cringing and going, why did we help these guys again?
Russia will extremely rapidly cut support if they think it's going to cause issues for them, if it even was that in the first place, which is an interesting one to consider. And of course, not everyone is as bad at it as Hamas, for example, which I've been seeing several things of that. And for instance, there was an Israeli artillery strike, and they got a website friendly to their cause or something to put up pictures of people that were killed in the airstrike. Unfortunately, it wouldn't work on anyone that's seen the movie 300, because what they did was Photoshop screenshots of the fairly well-known image near the end of it where all of them are filled full of arrows and lying on the ground. The only thing is they photoshopped just to the faces and the blood on the ground, and said that it was civilians that had been killed in the crossfire. It was a really bad Photoshop job.
Wow, that's almost as bad as North Korea.
Well, they can play Photoshop better than I can, at least.
Oh, okay. I cannot believe that they would actually think this would work.
Well, they figured, their buddies, the ISIL guys, they thought that if we sit out in the field and fire our guns at people on a mountain, nothing will happen. Well, they learned that the hard way.
Well, I guess if you live in an area that hasn't seen any movie since the first
I don't know, 80s, somewhere in there.
1880s.
Jeez.
Remember what we're talking about here, okay? You remember
Yeah,
the video I sent you of the
that's
guys caught sheep shagging?
That's North Korea, and you know it.
No, that
No, I don't
was
think North Korea does that.
Oh, no, as far as them not seeing any movies since then, that they haven't doctored.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's really off topic for tonight, but those guys are nuts.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of interesting the asymmetric warfare we've got going on here. On the one hand, you've got terrorists with assault rifles. On the other hand, you've got the United States with aircraft carriers, and they're figuring out their ways to counter it. Power projection is great, which is a lead into a next point that the United Kingdom is building another aircraft carrier. But power projection is great, but it's not all encompassing.
you need troops on the ground to be able to hold what you obliterate.
Well, and that's what we're letting the Kurds do.
Wait. Holding ground? I thought you were a Marine.
Oh.
Well, that's what we have the army for, to send, after we go through, obliterate everything with extreme prejudice and drunken glee.
And get everything, then
we just
the army...
let the army come in afterwards and set up their PX.
Well, at least you guys can see the ground. We're Navy. We just hang out. We just get you there. Once you're there,
you get us there and you drop bombs where we ask you to drop bombs.
Well,
yeah, the poor carrier battle group sitting offshore with nothing to do.
The Air Force drops bombs where you tell them to drop bombs. We drop bombs where we want to.
Yeah, see, as Fanta said, nothing to do.
Soon going to have another aircraft carrier.
We drop bombs.
Yes, the Queen Elizabeth class.
Yes,
one of
3/4
which
the size of the Nimitz.
One of which will be the Queen of the Queen Elizabeth, and the other one has been named Prince Charles.
Oh, okay, as long as it's not the Prince Harry.
Yes, well, it was Prince of Wales, but they actually have a name that they can use for it, so...
Right.
That one's scheduled for launch in 2017 and commission in 2020. They want to get, commissioning plan for 2017, initial operation in 2020. So they're both going to be going out to sea at around the same time. But among other things, what they were talking about at one point, trying to go for a catapult-assisted takeoff and arrested landing system, was turned down because of excessive cost that would be associated with this, as well as the fact that a naval modification of the Eurofighter platform, the EF-2000, the Typhoon, as the Brits call it. I have a British friend of mine that tells me to stop using numbers because only nerds do it. But
what are we?
Naval modifying their Typhoons would leave them to heavier than would make them as effective as they are now.
Yeah, it seems like that entire British aircraft carrier thing has been plagued with too much cost. Like they're building 2 of them because the study found that the penalty clauses for canceling the second one would cost more than just going ahead and building it. So now they're probably going to see if they can find somebody to buy it or something like that.
Well, as long as the Chinese don't get it.
My thing is, what planes are they planning on using now?
Well, that means that they've gone back to their procurement orders of the F-35B, which isn't surprising because one of the major companies involved in the production is BAE Systems. A lot of people, actually forget that the F-35 isn't just a project developed by Lockheed Martin. It's actually a joint project that I think the first joint developed stealth aircraft, believe it or not, that we actually have people working on it over here, components that were worked on it not just in Britain, but several other countries, which is, I think, among other things, Israel got authorization for modifications of the airframe and intends to install a second seat into the F-35As they're procuring, as well as built-in hard points into the wings for ECM systems without disrupting without requiring them to carry them on external pylons, which compromises the radar cross-section.
Yeah, I think the airframes I'm not sure where all the components for the F-35 go. I know that they build at least the wings, and when I toured the factory in Fort Worth, BAE, they've all got subcomponents and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, how much does the F-35 B variant cost?
About 300 mil.
Okay, and how many of them are going to be on a typical aircraft carrier?
The B variant for the United States Marine Corps, I think they're going to put like 8 to 12 on. I think it's like actually 6 to 8. 6 to 8 is on a landing ship.
That's 252 actually.
252 million. Okay. Yeah.
The F-35C, you're exactly right on that one. Is 300 million.
Think of how much pony you could buy with that.
Wait.
Oh my God.
Okay. They're talking about $250 million per plane. Okay. How many planes are going to be on the British carrier?
The Queen Elizabeth class will carry 40 of those each because they are also carrying helicopters. They use a lot of helicopters.
Okay, $10 billion right there. Now, how much more would this developing the
That's the GDP of a small country floating around out there.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you call it? The catapult system. For that, how much would that have cost?
Well,
over 10 billion?
Less than one of those planes.
The only issue, of course, would be that then still that would leave them with the F-35C, which is more expensive than the B variant, and also, as we already discussed, the naval modifications to the Eurofighter were turned down because of the expense in, well, A, the expense involved, B, the reduction in capabilities.
Cough, Super Hornet.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing, though, is I don't know if we export those now.
I actually don't think that we do.
Wait, exporting what now?
The F-18.
F-18 Hornet or Super Hornet.
We actually do. Canada has the base Hornet.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me.
Well, that's Canada. How many aircraft does Canada have?
I think the only reason why we gave them to Canada so they wouldn't send any more Justin Biebers down here.
Actually, how many does Canada have any aircraft carriers, or they just sort of rent ours?
No, they don't have any aircraft carriers.
Okay.
But this Queen Elizabeth class armed with F-35Bs, once it comes online, I'm tempted to say that it'll make it about the second most capable carrier force in the world. The Chinese carriers have the J-15s, but they don't have catapult takeoff either.
And those were based off the Admiral Zhukovsky? That's the name of it, wasn't it?
Admiral Kuznetsov.
Kuznetsov, thank you. I keep messing that up, but yes, based off.
It sounds more like sneeze nuts off.
That's interesting. The Spanish and the Kuwaitis have Hornets.
Yep.
Of all people.
The Malaysians do too.
Spain, that's right.
And the Swiss have them.
Yeah, I said that earlier.
That's actually funny because Malaysia, after we canceled the XM8 rifle project, Malaysia actually uses them. So even though we funded the development of them and then decided we didn't want to contract with a non-American company for our infantry weapons, Malaysia now gets to reap the benefits of that because they aren't turning it down based on, well, I gotta say, given one of the main things that Colt, for instance, was talking about was that, it isn't right that we would be contracting for weapons from a company outside of the United States to serve our own soldiers. I'm not sure if that's, given that I don't really see them offering that many alternatives, I'm not sure if that was a reasonable, whatever.
Well, we could always sell the weapons to the Changeling or the Griffin Empire.
Probably need them.
Well, the Griffins would be in particular. They have claws which are synonymous with hands.
Yes.
They could use the rifles. Yeah,
I mean, what the hell are you supposed to do against an enemy that can blast you with a beam of weaponized friendship?
Snipe him from a sniper from 500 meters. I don't know.
You tuck your head between your legs.
Yeah, that's if.
Okay, we're talking about defense, not talking about the fix you read.
You cleanse up.
That's it. Yeah, that's if they don't do the.
You clinch up and take it on the abs.
Ugh!
Like a man.
Manly.
Yep.
Yeah, so his friendship is manly.
Have Snowflake stand in front of you.
I still remember that video.
Oh,
I can't
God.
believe that my friend Marine Marksman actually did a whole couple fix on that.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
What is it? The bromance or something? Oh my God. This fandom.
So how long until we see an ISIL troll fic?
You know what? That would be hilarious. Just a bunch of Pegasus bombing shit.
I'm kind of
yeah,
surprised. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already.
One shot Tober. It will be in
rapid-
one shot Tober.
It probably
that's
will,
so-
considering how rapid this fandom is about picking up on virtually everything and one-shotting it.
It's
Hey,
working, a bunch of Pegasus.
I need
jokers all
topics
standing out in
for
the
one
field.
shot Tober.
Look at all these jokers
I'll do
standing
it.
out in the middle of the field. Let's just drop a bunch of hail on them. You know?
Okay, so how do the ponies get in theater? Are you gonna bring them in on an aircraft carrier? I don't see why not.
We'll just
See, that
we'll
keeps
just tell
coming back to
Cloud
the
Chaser
question of-
there's we'll just tell Cloud Kicker there's a bunch of virgins over there. You know, she's over.
Oh my God.
It kind of brings back the interesting question that it seems, I mean, I've seen in a lot of cases, the fan base seems almost equally divided between what's the technology base that the equestrian military has. I mean, are we talking sailing ships? Like, some people have had sailing ships, which does make sense somewhat with their technology level, but some of the episodes have shown, for instance, powered airships flying around. So a lot of people have wondered if that's what they would be using.
Military
also have to-
say
They also have some computerized technology too. If you look at that one episode, Feeling Pinky Keen, there, Twilight had an electrocephalogram. Even that's some pretty high tech stuff.
But the most advanced weapons the Guardians have are spears and bows.
and defensive magic spells.
Well,
That
yeah.
is
I don't
why
blame 'em,
I love
because-
Bannon.
Giant
You can make up
shields that
whatever
do-
you want.
Giant
Because the
shields
kind
that scan your balls, as seen by Rainbow Dash. Watch this
funny,
goes over her. She's like covering up, like whoa.
it's part of the reason why I like how so many times you have people exploring this idea of, well, you have this completely discordant technological base, of course, because so many things that we need our high level of technology for, they don't, because they have other things like unicorns and magic. They have stuff that they can use for that.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it
ponies don't have very
again just leaves it an interesting thing of how do you put together a military of so many different specializations that can do so many different things? And, you know, you have from spears and bows.
It's called
Spears and bows up until a spell that could put a hole through armor plating. I mean,
it's called have your ruler be the boss of the sun and just threaten to drop the sun on the planet if anybody fucks with Equestria.
the only problem would be, of
Mutually
course,
assured
Oh, yeah,
lateral
Tunguska
damage that
all
comes
over
from that,
again.
but-
Mutually assured destruction, pony style.
As a demonstration, let me bring you to Tunguska.
Oh God.
You know that.
Tunguska.
You know, or better yet, what was that island? What was that island there that the Soviets dropped that Tsar Bomba on?
What island?
No, it wasn't Kamchatka. That's on the.
There's no island anymore.
Actually, no, the island is there. It's just basically kind of smoothed
up
out
in the
glass
north.
now.
It's just sort of it's full of radioactive polar bears. You probably shouldn't go there.
It does.
Okay,
make
now
you
we're getting
wonder,
into
though,
Fallout
what-
Equestria stuff.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, though, whether she would be capable of lensing, you know, focusing more solar energy on one area than another. Kind of like, of all things, Icarus from the Bond movie, Die Another Day. Just
Yeah.
picking up sunlight and focusing it into a beam.
Well, she did. Celestia did sort of focus a beam out of her horn, but it got defeated by pure love. So, twisted love.
I think that was the only thing about that just... I guess the one thing that only really irritated me and just kind of ruined my whole appreciation for the movie was the frigging hovercrafts. We made hovercrafts so we can hover over landmines. How do you think they're staying up? By exerting force on the ground. I don't
But
even
that
know who
force
wrote
is
that
spread
script, but
over
it
the
pisses me
entire
off.
thing there, and
It's
the force
enough.
is spread out over the entire over the entire area.
Things
And not only that there, but whereas it is air, the triggers there can still keep their upright position against that air. Now, what makes mines detonated by heavy things like tanks is when the tank's tread itself rolls over it, which is a much more focused weight.
Right, but it depends
That's
on the
still less
construction.
magic than anything
Not
else.
all of them. Yeah, not all of them rely on, for instance, having a trigger type like that. Some of them just go, and there were some during that period that would do this. They just rely on pressure. Among other things, they can be buried completely under the ground with no external points that you can see to know that you're going to hit a mine.
Yeah.
That's also a that's also a popular trigger type used in improvised explosive devices, for example, because unlike using threads, lasers, all kinds of other trigger types that they've used, if you can get a hold of a pressure detonating landmine and use that as the trigger for your larger explosive, it makes it a lot more dangerous because it's harder to see that it's there. That's why, among other things, you have to be alert for places that it looks like someone's been digging.
Right.
But
If it rains too hard, they go off.
yes.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, though, that the hovercraft, if the pressure is spread out over equal enough space, there will not be enough pressure differential to actually set off the mine.
It would. Among other things, we've tried this. This has been tried before, is what I'm saying. I mean, obviously somebody postulated this before, but you can still, with a hovercraft, set off a landmine. Among other things, you'll have to figure that even with an armored vehicle, most of its, even if it has, say, treads, like a tank, it's distributing, and not all of its weight is focused on one location. So while an air cushion does mean that it's spreading the force out, the force is still being exerted to an equal extent along all the ground underneath of the vehicle. Something as heavy as an LCAC, for example, would pretty easily set off a buried pressure-sensitive landmine.
What I want to know is, if the ponies have tanks, why haven't we seen them?
Because
they're not canon yet.
Yes, they are. Rainbow Dash said, "I'm naming him Tank because he's hard to stop."
And Rarity says that Rainbow Dash she won't look like a tank.
Oh, not only that, I mean, that's right. That means firearms are canon too, because in the very same episode, says she wants something faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah.
There's only one type of thing that you use bullets. That's a gun.
What are hands? You keep mentioning them. You do know what they are.
The thing, though, is I think this comes from the same etymology standpoint that you have with Star Wars, for example, that how far do you want to go is in terms of remaining etymologically correct as opposed to confusing the hell out of your audience. For instance, the Millennium Falcon. Okay, so the Falcon is a bird that exists on any of the planets in the Star Wars universe. If there aren't Falcons in the Star Wars universe, what the heck is a Millennium Falcon named after?
XKCD did a comic on that. What's a Falcon?
Yes, exactly. He says, "What's a Falcon?" And Han Solo starts to explain his ship, and then the guy says, "No, what's a Falcon?" And then he's just looking at him blankly. But
it sounded cool.
It's one of those things. How obviously from the point of
I like various science fiction shows here that try to incorporate as much current what we have our technology into the show itself. Two excellent examples would be Firefly and Battlestar Galactica.
Well, that works.
You see lots of gasoline-powered ATVs, you know, that are recognizable as Honda or Kawasaki ATVs. You know, forklifts. The same forklifts we use in the warehouses there and supply battalion. There, when I was stationed at 7th Motors. Let me see.
Not like the alien movie.
See, Hondas last forever.
You see, they use bullet firing guns in both there. You know, okay, this fires actual bullets there. You know, granted, in Battlestar Galactica, I believe it was all caseless ammo.
Right.
But
and I
still,
think
we even have that technology today.
Well, I think in Firefly, I think the deal with them was that laser technology actually had been developed, but it was stupidly expensive, and basically it was basically just wasn't cost effective compared to bullets.
Yeah, they were rich man's toys. For instance, that one guy on the colony that the brothel was on that they went to go try and bail out, coming in his anti-grav hovercraft with his laser pistol that was powerful enough to slice solar sheeting off the side of the building.
Right.
You know, these are things that only extremely powerful people will have, most of whom have their power at the expense of the people of. Yeah, so
not even the government guys really had them. It was just kind of they had rifles, and it was like, okay, because burning a hole in someone's good, but shooting a hole in them is just as good and cheaper.
It appeared that, among other things, that they had power-assisted rifles. For instance, something that fires with a bullet, fires with a ballistic charge and then is electromagnetically accelerated to give it a bit more muzzle velocity.
Right.
But that was as far as it went, among other things, because
handheld there.
Yeah,
that would be very effective.
Yeah, power density storage is always the issue when you talk about directed energy weapons.
They get motorcycle batteries out now that weigh about 1.5 pounds that could supply enough energy to easily do 180 to 200 rounds worth of accelerated velocity from a charge that would from around maybe the size of a .22 long rifle, propel that up to 2,000 feet per second as opposed to 1,100 feet per second.
But then, of course, you get into the idea of now as opposed to bullets, among other things, since nice thing about NATO standard ammunition, which you see in a lot of places, is that actually, heck, that was one of the things in Black Hawk Down. One of the guys that was running around with a 7.62 machine gun picked up a magazine from an AK-47 and used some of those rounds. So you're getting into using an ammunition type that only you have access to, which makes it harder to get more of it, especially if you're operating with allies.
One thing about Black Hawk Down, he's using Soviet ammo and an American rifle.
Yes, if it's 7.62
7.62 times 39 is a much smaller case, though, in length than the 7.62 NATO round. It will not work properly. You will have issues of if you do not end up blowing up the gun because gumming up the barrel and lodging a bullet in there. You'll have issues of destroying the chamber itself when the round discharges, or Lord knows what else will happen.
Well,
firearms are designed for a specific round, a specific shaped case there, and a specific round.
Oh yeah, hey, y'all keep talking. I got food in the other room. Keep speaking.
Oh, okay. Lucky.
Be back in like 5 minutes.
I ate dinner earlier. If among other things, if you're operating with allies, especially since us, Europe, we use the same standard of ammunition. You're now talking about you need this specialized form of ammunition that you can only get from this one place. The other thing you have to factor in is that most of the electromagnets we used aren't exactly light. How much heavier do you want an already heavy weapon to be? So you basically start to have a whole bunch of factors in here that makes it more effective and more logical to just shoot bullets at people rather than
you could build the rifle using the system there to make the barrels as light as possible and install the magnets in. You have a very thin inner barrel wrapped around with a carbon fiber, with a thick carbon fiber wrap with the magnets embedded inside around there. Granted, they would be very costly.
Yes, it would also leave you with one final issue, the needing the bullet to be something that can be accelerated by magnets, which, for instance, lead cannot, which is also why you need to have, like, the railguns that you can see videos of the Navy testing, use a magnetic sabot that gets ejected from around the round, similar to the sabot ammunition we use in tanks. But that means that your round your round actually has to be larger than it actually is to be able to be used by the system. So you can also be talking about having either larger, heavier magazines or magazines that hold less ammunition. It starts to stack up into a whole bunch of issues, which are why we haven't pursued this more strongly. And when you talk about the idea of directed microwave or laser weapons, it's even more of an issue, because how long do you need the beam to be on target to do damage, depending on the power output of the beam? If you're talking about a really high power output of the weapon, how many shots can you reliably provide, considering that you want to send your soldiers into a fight with enough ammunition that they can, you know, get the job done for a good amount of time without needing resupply. And if you have a battery that cuts out after 40 shots, I mean, what good is that to anyone?
Well, there's another issue on that one too when it comes to the directed energy weapons there. Reliability. Okay, if you're putting out that much energy through these weapons to project to the enemy, how long is it going to be before you just end up burning out the weapon?
Mm-hmm.
That's another issue you have to consider.
Energy weapons, though, is that a lot of them are solid state with no moving parts.
But even solid state, eventually you can end up frying the whole system there.
Among other things,
but when it comes to the bullets, though. When it comes to the bullets here, steel. Let me see. Very soft steel bands around the bullet there. You could have the actual bullet itself diameter of, like, say if you want to use a 22 caliber weapon, a 20 caliber bullet with let me see, sizing bands up to that around the bullet brings it up to 22 caliber. That's very similar to what they use in 20 millimeter rounds, soft aluminum bands in that case.
Mm-hmm. And also, you can, for instance, similar to we use in, like I mentioned before, Sabo ammo with tanks, you can use a different metal on the interior of the round and encase it in lead, for example. It slightly reduces the total weight of the round, but when you consider that what you lose in weight, you are maybe doubling or tripling in muzzle velocity, which
they don't have to necessarily lose weight.
Use
a heavier steel alloy, like a tungsten steel alloy. It'll be right up there with lead. It'll also significantly strengthen the structural integrity of the bullet.
Yeah, but again, if you're only losing a small amount of weight in order to gain massively higher muzzle velocity, that's a perfectly good trade-off.
Except for the fact if the bullet's lighter, it will bleed off speed faster, greatly reducing effective range.
Yes, it makes it basically into a more close-range weapon, which actually, since most of what we issue to our soldiers nowadays are carbines in the first place, because most of our fights seem to be taking place at shorter ranges, I mean,
well,
it's just one of those. It's one of those that gets tossed around, but DARPA and whoever else haven't yet come up with a system that is, as you were talking about, has the viability and reliability to replace what we use right now.
Just waiting for DARPA to invent magic.
That would certainly be quite a game changer. Of course, you know, hell, we got some stuff that NASA trying to put together a drive that focuses the space in front of a ship to cause it to move without any force of acceleration on the ship itself.
Well,
that's pretty crazy stuff.
T-Nab, you mentioned about DARPA inventing magic. Was it Heinlein or Clark that said there, any technology so significantly... Yeah, how'd that phrase go?
Any sufficiently advanced
technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Exactly. Which fic was it, anyways, that he wrote? Which book that he used that in?
A bunch. Wait, was it? No, I know. Magic. Clark said magic is technology we haven't discovered yet. Heinlein might have said, I don't know. Heinlein might have said the same thing. I know, among other things.
You know, I'm going to magically change the names to Captain Tangent 1,
Road.
Captain Tangent 2, and Captain Tangent 3.
Glory Road, among other things. Glory Road, a book he wrote, a shorter one, had that as a primary element. Among other things, he ends up meeting this woman who's is I cannot remember what is it's not it's something T geometry, but typically what it at one point they need to get somewhere rapidly, and she says she can handle that. She takes an arrow from her bow, puts it on the ground, and starts putting this large circular mathematical array on the ground, kind of like a transmutation circle from Full Metal Alchemist. And the word keeps escaping me whenever I try and remember it. But she says and he asks her what the heck she's doing, and she says, "Oh, this is just a type of geometry." Says, "What is this?" Yeah, it's as simple as what you can do in your fifth grade math class. And he just sits there and watches her do this. At which point she then says all of them to sit in a line behind the arrow, inscribes something else into the circle, and the arrow goes flying off with all of them flying behind it, unattached to it, and carries them hundreds of miles with no
weaponized
visible
geometry.
means
That
of...
sounds like something Twilight would pull off.
It's like, that was... This was just normal, and they constantly did that throughout. Among other things, the first world that they visited, rules that it operated meant that gunpowder combustion didn't work. So all of the weapons that he had on him, none of them would work. They had to use things like swords and bows, which was why she had a bow in the first place. It was a rather entertaining read.
Yeah, using advanced geometry reminds me of a story I read. It was by Hooves Like Jagger, but basically the pony's special talent was hexagons.
All right, people, we should consider time here. Shall we summarize the topics?
ISIL, bad. Israel, Gaza, complicated. Ukraine, also complicated, but the rebels suck at OPSEC, and the United Kingdom is building a couple of aircraft carriers, one of which they can't afford.
Expensive or very expensive? Take your pick.
Which is, of course, very popular with their parliament, but yeah.
And to summarize the call, we have a hell of a time trying to stay on topic.
We're tangenteers.
Yes.
But the conversation got more interesting after we went on a tangent.
So there is that.
Very true.
Well, as I put on there, any sufficiently analyzed magic is indistinguishable from science.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. Well,
okay,
so
Twilight.
For Pilot Podcast. Good talking to you, gentlemen.
It was excellent talking to you. This is Biker Dash, and I shall be signing out.
Later.
See you, everybody.
Right.
Be pony out.